Hey guys, welcome here and welcome back. The topic this week is kind of in line with some of the things me and Jason talked about last week. If you listened to that episode, if you haven't, go and check it out. It was a really good episode. Jason is um, phenomenal general contractor and has a lot of experience and insight into the construction world. So today, I thought I'd talk about how to kind of navigate the certain paths in the trade industry, whether that's um, becoming kind of a high level employee and kind of where you get to a point where you're running crews and even past that, getting to a point where you're higher up in bigger companies or where you move to starting your own business and kind of how to navigate those things. Um, Thought I'd start off with just saying trades teach invaluable skills. You can apply just about anything you learn in a trade to just about any other job out there. For example, I know quite a few people that have got their start in trades, whether it's because their parents or family or whatever, whatever it is, they were working a trade job before they got their job, and they've used that experience in their new career, whatever career they moved to, whether they were going to school or just chose something else. They've used that to help further themselves and use that experience to benefit their position. No matter what, the more skills you learn, the better you become at certain things, the more capable you become, and the more you can offer in turn, the more you can do. Sounds silly, sounds simple and easy, and that's kind of the point. You can apply anything you learn at any job to any other job out there. And a lot of people get this mixed up by, not putting so much effort into current jobs they're working in because they don't plan on continuing in those careers. So they're like, well, I don't need to work hard here because this isn't my career. Um, I'm not going to stay in this job for very long, so I don't really care. But I mean, what would it look like if you learned as much as you possibly could while you were working there and then took that expertise into a certain, a different career? You know, I've spent my life surrounded by the construction industry, so I'm using all of my experience and knowledge and um, everything I've learned to put it towards marketing to contractors for websites. And it's been helping me a ton. A lot of the connections I have help me out that way. I still do concrete, so I'm in the industry every day, so I know I have a lot of connections, and that way it helps a ton. You wouldn't think that concrete would apply to websites that way, but it does because everything can be crossed over and applied. For example, also Eric Triplett, who I had on the podcast a couple weeks ago, took his landscaping and excavation expertise and his love of fish and ponds and all of that, and his framing expertise, and started installing um, fish tanks in people's houses and ponds in their backyards. You wouldn't think you could move into almost a completely different industry and then bring them together and then offer a product that people are going to pay top dollar for. But he's killing it. And he has a coaching group kind of teaching people what he does and how he does it. And there's numerous examples of that across the board. But today we're just going to discuss moving in the trades, through the trades, and kind of some paths you have. You don't always need to own your own business. You can be very successful working for somebody. And I think a lot of people also nowadays with social media and all of these coaches telling you have to start your own business, you don't need to. You can have as much success or more as a lot of people that run a business, because a lot of people that run a business aren't cut out for it and they don't put in enough work, and it's a lot harder and it doesn't work out. Not saying that you will, but the odds are against most people starting businesses. And a lot of people simply don't want to put in the amount of work and time that it takes to start one. So there is hope for just about anybody. There's plenty of jobs out there, every trade, every capacity. So the first thing I would say to do, and I kind of came up with 5 things, is to find someone you know that has a trade and work for them and get started. Whether that's a subcontractor doing framing, plumbing, electrical, concrete, or that's a general contractor doing a lot of stuff, managing projects. Get in there and learn from them and work with them. And you need to stick to it long enough to know whether or not you like it. You can always go jump to a different trade, and they will take your previous expertise as in consideration to the fact that you know how to work already and can give you a leg up in each other job you want. And obviously, you don't want to jump around to a different trade every single year. I mean, that's a good way to learn a lot of things, but not become a master at anything. And reminded of the saying, "Jack of all trades, master of none." It's good to know a lot of things, and it's good to know how to do a lot of things, but you need to learn to master what it is that you're going after. So find a trade, someone work for, whatever it is. Learn everything you can, stick around long enough to know whether or not you like it. And then number 2 is actually learn everything you can. The more you know, the more valuable you are, and the more you will start to get paid. A lot of times it takes initiative on the part of an employee to learn and rise up in the company, because especially if it's a small company, a lot of times there's not a definite learn this and you get promoted to this. There's not any sort of established order of operations. So just start learning everything you can, take it all in, figure out why it is you do things, how it is you do things, and remember that, and start trying out new things and pushing yourself, because that's, at the end of the day, the way that you are going to figure out the trade the fastest and become an expert. Number 3, push yourself and make a constant and consistent effort to get better. If you show up one week and you're all gung-ho, learn everything you can, work hard, the next week you show up late, you're lazy, complacent, don't want to do anything, or even just slow about the way that you move. Like, you can definitely tell when someone is disinterested in being somewhere. If you show up one week, all awesome and a great employee, awesome to work with, the next week it's completely opposite. That's not going to do good for you. And so you need to get some consistency in the amount of effort that you put in. And the more that you start to look into a lot of things, the more consistency comes up as a talking point. The best way to do anything is to do it consistently, whether you're learning something new, whether you're doing something in general, staying consistent so that you can do the same thing every single time. Think about anything you can. Doing consistent work is always the best. And that comes into play when you're learning and starting off in a trade. Being consistent is a lot of times what will keep you around, especially even when things like layoffs come around, which you never know when that might happen. The harder you work and the more consistent you are, usually the better off you are in any scenario. Number 4 is to work that way and get to a point where you can run crews or jobs where your boss, whoever it is, can leave you on the job and things will get done right and on time and with consistent quality to the work that you put out usually. This is important because once you start to get to a point where you can do things on your own and you can direct other people to do things that you want them to do and become a leader, is when you start to make the money and when you start to be able to move up faster through ranks. If you start off in a smaller company, that might turn into you getting your own truck, you getting company cards, you getting to run a crew and run jobs on your own. Bigger companies, that might turn into that, and then moving on to like a vice president or like a superintendent position. Whatever it is, there's usually multiple ways to move from. A lot of times in a small business, once you get to a point where you run crews, that is kind of the limit for what you can do and make, but not always. You can always work with your boss on what his expectations and what your expectations are of what you want to be able to do and accomplish. And that most of the time, your boss will be more than happy to help you find a new position if you're outgrowing where you're at, which will happen if you put in the work and are consistent. And or they're more than happy to accommodate what you want to accomplish. So once you get to a point where you can run crews, your options are pretty much unlimited. And even if you do get to that point and you run crews for a small business, a smaller company for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you can take that experience and put it towards a bigger company and move on and get even more opportunities. So really, options are unlimited. You can always jump around trades, use that experience to your favor. After that, number 5, you can start your own business, or like I've said, can work through the ranks to vice president, superintendent positions. A lot of big dollar job positions are available to people that have put in the work and are willing to continue putting in the work and have experience. I would say you can start a business at any time. I would say stay at a job or with an employer and learn on their dime as long as you can. Starting a business is nice. There is a lot of pluses to it, but there's also so many downsides that a lot of people aren't prepared for, like the amount of time you have to put in, the amount of work you have to put in, and that the mistakes actually cost you money. So if you're working for somebody and you make a mistake, a lot of times it's on their dime. And since you work for them and you've been working for them and they can't do the job without you, they take that, and that is an investment into you. But the moment you have your own business, it's all on you. So stay long enough to learn on someone else's dime and help contribute to another company before you really decide to start yours. Again, you can start a company anytime, you can start a business anytime. There's a lot of people that start businesses with almost no experience, and sometimes they end up working out, and good for a lot of them. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of mistakes, costs a lot of money, and maybe they're better off in the long run, maybe not. What I do know is starting off working for somebody, getting paid to learn, getting paid to make mistakes, getting paid high dollar at some point to run operations and really get a plan to start your own business sounds pretty good. There's not a lot of places where you can start somewhere making minimum wage and work your way all the way up to $100,000-$200,000. There are quite a few different ways to do that in a trade. So don't feel limited to not staying in the trades forever. there are plenty of opportunities. One thing I always hear about from people that have worked in trades and moved to a different career is they felt like there was no way out, or there was no way to improve, but there always is. And I've talked a lot on here about social media. That's a huge way to improve and to keep your network expanding. Because even if you're not a business owner, the more people you know, the more opportunities you can get. And as you're accruing experience and you're building your network of people, there will always be a job option for you. So I hope you guys like this. Thanks for listening. That's all I got for today. And I'm excited for what's coming with this podcast. Thanks all for your support. I have received quite a few messages lately about making an impact in people's lives, which I wasn't necessarily thinking was going to happen with this podcast, but it really helps to keep morale up and keep me going. So thank you for your support. And if you like this episode, share it with a friend and subscribe and leave a rating and review. It helps a lot more than people think. And I'll see you next time.